The following is brought to you by the PLD Projects Network. It's me, it's PLD. PLD. PJ Campbell. Two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
Oh, there it is. I was
There it is, right there.
Actually,
We're
I was
actually
so
recording.
confused because you were like, "We're recording," and nothing popped up, and then you're like, "Wait, no, we're recording." And I was like,
Right now.
"I still don't see anything." And then StreamYard delayed putting the live thing up on my end because StreamYard is a thing. We're using StreamYard again, guys.
Yeah, we are. We're using StreamYard. We got rid of Riverside, just cutting costs. You know, we both lost our jobs, so you know it is what it
Wait,
is.
what?
Oh, you didn't find out? You didn't hear about that? Oh, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that off air, I guess.
Wait, who am I supposed to invoice for all these questions that I've been writing?
Well, think about that.
Can I say how much pain it brings me that every time I watch things still, I can't turn my brain off enough to just not write questions. So anytime I'm watching things, all I can think about is, well, that could be a question. Well, that could be a question. Well, that could be a question. And then I'm like, wait, I have nowhere to use any of these skills anymore.
Yeah, you're Liam Neeson without a kidnapped daughter, basically.
That's probably better, actually.
It probably is better.
The world only needs one of me. We don't need me having a smaller version of me running around at all.
That'd be interesting. I'd like to see you as a father at some point. That'd be kind of cool. A little mini PJ. I mean, I
always wanted to be a dad, but I worry for the fate of the world if we did that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Now you get to be Uncle PLD in that scenario.
That's true. That is true. I could do that. I'll have to see. Maybe it's not such a bad idea. Well, we'll talk more about that at some point.
Look. First, I have to con someone into actually wanting to be in a relationship with me.
Yeah,
there's a process to this.
Well, that's something we'll definitely talk about off screen. We'll start the long process. I got my yellow legal pad with the whole pros and cons, and we'll map it all out. How about that?
That's what I did for this movie. You know why? Because we're talking fucking Halloween 5 today, and I have all the notes.
Halloween 5, which before this watch through, I will say, I believe I had it as my second least favorite movie in the watch through. Surpassed, or I don't know if surpassed is the right word. My hatred is surpassed only by Halloween Resurrection. But interestingly enough, as we're going to find out, I don't know if I'm just like resigned. I don't know if I'm getting past my crotchety phase at this point. This is a bad movie. I'm not going to lie. This is a bad movie.
It's a bad movie and it should feel bad.
I did not hate it as much as I used to. I don't know if there's a little Brandon and Hannah rubbing off on me a little bit. No, Hannah once said to me that you should watch this and pretend it's not a Halloween movie. And I tried that as much as I could.
Just Resurrection, though.
Maybe it was just Resurrection. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just out of I am old. I am definitely old and losing brain cells. But I did try to actually apply that to this. And there's parts of it that actually it did work for that reason. You got to do a lot of, well, okay, I get this is happening. Well, okay, I get this is happening. But yeah, I might be trying to connect. Well, maybe at the end I might be you might talk me back into hating it completely again. So we'll find out.
I'll say this. Dominic Othenen Gilliard.
Who cares?
Dude, okay.
That I'm all on.
Let's get this out of the way. Here's what I'm going to say. Out the gate. This dude walked in to Mustafa Akkad's office, and when they were like, so you want to do Halloween 5? He goes, yeah, but do you want to do a Halloween 6? And they go, well, have you seen these movies? And he goes, well, then you can't use this script. And he took whatever script they had and he threw it in the trash.
Oh, my God, dude. Like, I don't want to talk badly about people. I really don't. But all I got to say about this dude is that we got an interview in that book we read called Taking Shape. And I've read other interviews as well. This dude is one of the most arrogant dudes I've ever met, and he has no reason to be arrogant at all. But I'm sorry, keep going with your
No. It's funny you bring that up because so I tend to watch the making of featurettes that I had seen in a bit when I rewatched the movies, and it was not lost on me that he did not come back to any interviews for the set. And the more I think about it, the more that I'm getting Jason Goes to Hell vibes from him as a filmmaker. Anyone who knows about Jason Goes to Hell, that filmmaker notoriously did not like the Friday the 13th movies, but decided to make one. But he didn't want to do one with Jason. So why even make the movie? That's the vibe I got here. And the funny thing is apparently this dude, Dominique, watched all the Nightmare movies, all the Friday movies, and all the Halloween movies in one weekend before he went in to pitch his Halloween 5. And it is so clear that he would have much rather been making a Friday the 13th movie than a Halloween movie. And he throws out literally just about everything.
I think he'd rather make a Nightmare. I think he'd make a Nightmare movie rather than
I think he'd rather make anything than a Halloween movie.
Right. He proclaimed his love for the original Halloween, but I don't really see that here either. So
I don't either. And apparently, allegedly, Deborah Hill was the one who was like, you should take a shot on this guy. And now I'm just wondering if Deborah Hill was fucking with them.
I'm
going to be honest with you.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. Like, was Deborah Hill just like, fuck you guys?
I mean, because her and Carpenter definitely, I mean, obviously they left the series before 4, and there was definitely, I don't know if bitterness is the right word. I think they were just kind of tired of the whole thing, but it would not be surprising if I found out that she held a little bit of animosity and said, do this.
Right?
It does seem like this. I mean, let's be honest, it's not just Dominique's fault. The whole thing stems from the problem that this whole thing was rushed from ticking them out. I mean, like,
I mean, you're 100% right. As we like to do, this movie was rushed into production almost immediately after the success of 4 to meet a release date almost exactly a year to the date of the last movie.
Definitely.
And they went,
this is like written, cast, shot, edited, marketed, everything in 1 year's time.
Which is a lot for anything, which we're actually about to see ourselves. Going off Halloween Kills to Halloween Ends.
If the plan is in place, that's okay.
But that's why I was going to say that's different. The plan was already in place. They didn't bring in new people to do it. They went back to Salt Lake City. They shot the movie again in Salt Lake City. Haddonfield just continues to change and grow in the weirdest ways where it no longer looks like the Haddonfield from the original.
Right.
I can't get over the Gothic aesthetic of the Myers house all of a sudden. Like the floor plan to the Myers house doesn't even make sense anymore.
Because they did it because they did it instead of writing with a setting an established setting that's been made. They decided, well, I want this to happen, so we're just going to change the setting.
Yeah.
That's not good work, guys. You got that. Just, some people say the inside house not that big of a thing. You haven't seen that much of it, yada yada yada. I get it, but you can't just change things because of what you want to have done. You have to. You can only change things if they make sense to within the already structured universe. This is not your property. This is not your new horror film. This is something that's already. I'm going to say, obviously 4 films old, but even if you take out Halloween 3 as part of the outlier, it's still 3 films old. You have to respect that. And nobody respected that. It seems like.
And I think the audience felt the same way because this movie ended up underperforming pretty badly. It still more than made its budget back. It was made for $5 million. It made $11 million in the U.S., but that was down $6 million from the $17 million that Halloween 4 had done previously the year before. So, I think word of mouth was very rough for that movie. I think that it shows in the final product that there was so much clashing going on behind the scenes. There's an entire subplot that we're going to keep talking about involving the Thorn stuff that is never developed because they cut almost all of it out.
Right.
Including the original opening of the movie.
Right.
Which was the setup for it that Akkad decided to have taken out along the way. Everything about this movie is super frustrating for me.
That's the word frustrating, because like Mustafa Akkad, like I have a lot of respect for overall. He's not blameless in this. He's definitely involved in this. I mean, I think he, more than anyone else, had the best intentions with what he was doing at this point. Although he did think he could, I think he took on too much as far as that. Because now, as soon as he took out Yablans, he took out Carpenter and Hill, he was like the sole guy. He was the dude. And it worked for 4. It worked getting him back in, but he had a great person. Like Dwight Little obviously directed it. And they wanted Dwight Little to come back, and Dwight Little said, yeah. He said he was asked to come back quite a few times, but he felt the ending was a poor way. He didn't really know what to do with the ending.
I know what you do.
I know what you do.
Jamie Lloyd the fucking killer.
Exactly. Well, and that, I think they were scared about not having Michael Myers in there again. I think that's part of the issue. They want Michael Myers being that. And they also, in the 80s, they couldn't make the good little girl, evil, because that's like, it's would upset fans or something. I don't know what the thought process was, but Donald Pleasance was out against it. He was mad about it. He thought that they were doing the wrong thing. I mean, he still stuck around, and he said he would do it because he liked the character so much. But he even, like, there's actually quotes from him that he was clashing with Dominique over who his character was. And if anybody knows Loomis, it's Donald fucking Pleasant at this point, more than anybody else at this point. And
it's so funny because, it's always been talked about that Pleasance was very hands-on and he helped a lot, and he and Danielle got along very well. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the time when it came to him, even since the original, he would rewrite a lot of the Loomis dialogue for himself. Mm-hmm. And he would make it fit what he thought the character was. And he did a lot of that here too. Mm-hmm. But they definitely cut the character out a ton. He only filmed for about a week on the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He had the biggest set, or not the biggest set, the biggest like van. Yeah. Or like, for the stars, they all have their van or their whatever you want to call them, the trailers. Right. Thank you, PJ. You got there. I
wasn't sure where you're going.
And apparently, no, I'll tell you where. So he had the trailer, and it was the biggest one there, and he was only going to be there for a week. And then apparently he told the producers, because they were going to get rid of the trailer, he goes, absolutely not. This is Danielle's movie. This is her trailer when I leave.
Nice.
And he was such a badass that he forced them to keep the trailer. That's the kind of stuff he was doing. So he was hard on people, but only in the fact that he was trying to come in and be like professional and treat the movie and the characters and the franchise with the reverence that he felt it deserved, including putting more love on Danielle Harris, who was only a kid at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite frankly, outside of Pleasance, maybe Danielle Harris is the best thing going from 4 and 5. She is probably the best performer that the entire series has. So much so that I was so excited to see her come back for the zombie remakes. Totally different character, obviously, as Annie, but was glad to see her move on because she did such a phenomenal job. Although this movie does do its best to neuter her a little bit, to be honest with you. Now, we did have an original script that came out. The original first script, which we'll talk about in our new Patreon show, where we go into the
assuming sequels. That my power doesn't go off.
That's right. PJ is very upset. I was very upset. PJ's power went out. We actually debuted our Patreon show this Sunday night. It was just a one mediocre white dude on film talking about the 3 unproduced Halloween 4 sequels to Halloween. I'm
very mad about it.
Became Halloween 4.
Mad about it.
We're gonna try again next week. And we're going to do the one unused script from Halloween 5, which does actually do what we wanted to do. It follows in the footsteps. It has an evil Jamie Lloyd continuing in her uncle's footsteps. That was a script that was initially written. And that is a script that Dominique decided to throw in the garbage.
Because Dominique is garbage. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say it. He's not dead. So I'm not talking ill about the dead. This dude's the worst. There's a few times when someone comes into a franchise where you're like, you just didn't get it. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those times. This is not the people who complain about Rian Johnson being involved with Star Wars. If you think Rian Johnson doesn't understand Star Wars, I'm sorry, but you've miswatched The Last Jedi.
At the very least, let me say, at the very least with Rian Johnson, Rian Johnson is definitively a fan. Whether you agree with his take on Star Wars, that's something completely I get. If somebody
but he's
just
a fan at least.
But he appreciates and is very reverent of the series, and he comes at it maybe from a different angle. Dominique is not that. Dominique is not that at all. He comes from is what's good for Dominique. What Dominique wants.
He was found in Sweden. He's a Swedish filmmaker. He was brought over here strictly because it was the middle of the 90s or the late 80s. And that was that time from like the late 80s to the mid 2000s. We kept bringing people over from other countries and having them make movies, but we would neuter the thing that they were doing. Or we would let them run rampant and you'd end up with Alien Resurrection or Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff that you didn't necessarily want. Every once in a while you'd get a face off, right?
Yep.
Great. Fantastic. That was a lot more few and far between than I think people realize.
Yeah.
But especially when it came into coming onto properties, it always ended up being a really big gamble. And here it did not work out because Dominique was not interested in following what Halloween 4 did. And I actually think Halloween as a franchise is very weirdly overt or they have an aversion to doing this. And it seems like it's like this even in the newer films too. It always seems like they set up the potential of the bloodline or like someone in these scenarios being affected by Michael that might potentially pick up the mantle, but then they swerve away from it. And that looks to be what Halloween Ends is also doing. Ends kind of set up the potential of doing that, or even Halloween to Halloween Kills, like having Laurie's granddaughter holding the knife at the end. It seemed very much like they were potentially setting up that idea.
Right.
And then they didn't do it in Kills. So like we've seen them do this time and again where they'll be like, we're actually going to set it up. H2, the zombie one, we're going to get to that too. Laurie is so affected by what happens.
Right.
That the whole premise of that movie is what if she became Michael?
Yes, exactly. That is the thing. And none of the sequel to that actually had that go explore that even more. So that's one of the sequels I really wish you would have gotten, to be honest with you.
And that's what I mean. Like every time we get so close to having that happen, we're swung back the other direction because they all know people just want to see Michael.
And that's it's a blessing and a curse because, we are two people who love Michael. We want to see Michael as well, but we also want to see other things happen. By the way, did you know? I don't know. I just learned this today. I looked at Dominique. Actually, was an associate director on Halloween Kills.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I don't know what that means necessarily. I looked up his filmography. He didn't direct it or write it, but he's an associate director, whatever that means necessarily. I don't know if he shot something or not. That's strange to me, considering his last credit before that was a TV miniseries called The Crusaders in 2001.
Wow.
I just blew my mind. But either way, I'll go back and say, all right, just to go back, Dominique is so arrogant for someone who had basically no real credits. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know he was a Swedish director, so obviously he did his After Darkness with John Hurt was a big film of his from 1985. But after that, with Halloween 5, he got The Omen for The Awakening, a TV film. Nothing of note. And yet he's the guy who comes into a producer of a successful franchise, throws a script away, hires somebody who goes, I'm going to make this script with this other dude. The Katz is okay. The other dude doesn't decide to leave. And he comes back with a third guy to come in. He said, no, we're going to go with this guy now.
Akkad doesn't just say yes, though.
No.
Akkad initially throws him out of the office.
Yeah.
Akkad legitimately threw him out of the office, and then 20 minutes later, I guess at that point, Dominique gets a call from his manager who says, you crazy son of a bitch, I don't know how you did it, but you got the job. Right.
I think Akkad felt under pressure from other people himself. I think he felt the pressure of the release date. He's like, all right, we got somebody who seems to have some kind of passion for something. It's almost like in a way like you take a shot at somebody. Like, you know what? I don't like what this guy necessarily has to say, but he's very passionate about it. Let's see if we can make this work. Because we have no other choice. Not even no other choice. Obviously Dwight Little had turned them down a few times. Carpenter wasn't going back. And this is a guy who did have something in mind, at least. So in a way, I understand taking a shot at somebody who has passion. Unfortunately, this is not the passion that we wanted.
And I'll say this. Michael Jacobs, the guy who came in to write this movie for him, didn't do anything again.
No. Nope. But he was given, I believe he was given direction. And this is where it sometimes comes into play, where it's weird. I think this is where Akkad is at fault. I believe Akkad was the one who decided we have to make Jamie a good guy, so to speak, and not. They wanted Jamie to be the traumatized heroine and Loomis the avenging doctor. I think this is what Akkad wanted because he didn't think that the people would accept a little girl who was evil. I think that was Akkad deciding he couldn't. It was a step too far. Perhaps this was Halloween 3 biting him in the ass in a way. Like he didn't want to go too hard. Because Halloween 4, for all its, I said last time, Halloween 4 are my favorite of the sequels. My only negative of it is that there is definitely a safeness to it. It's not going well outside the box. It's kind of, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing to a degree when done right. But I think in a way that kind of like maybe was what Akkad was trying to do again, trying to be safe and trying to be too safe. And this time it was already like we had set things in motion, and to turn it around to be safe just cuts off any idea they had at the knees. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And look, here's the thing coming into a lot of this stuff, right? To your point, you're usually given some sort of direction when you're making these things, and you have people that you're answering to, especially at a studio level. That does not change the fact that sometimes the notes that you're getting are incorrect. And I wish that they had taken more chances, because there is something to be said about potentially doing that.
Right.
And especially with the very clear setup of Halloween 4.
Which
like
kills
Halloween
me.
4's ending is so specific.
Right. And it kills me because one of Akkad's overall driving desires was to make this franchise something that would continue. He had this idea, and one of the things he wanted to do was go, okay, I want Halloween 4 to lead to 5, 5 to lead to 6, 6 to lead to 7. That's what he had in his mind. And a couple of things he took place is he threw at Dominique that he wanted to have in there, the Cult of Thorns stuff we talked about. The Man in Black who's introduced in this film with no reason. The Man in Black was basically in there, shot in mostly reshoots, and inserted into the movie with no idea what they were going to do with them. The idea that, well, we'll let Halloween 6 explain it. We're just going to, it's like the fucking J.J. Abrams mystery box, but even at a lower level. Here's what you want to do. We'll get there eventually, and then hand it off to the next guy. And
here's what you're right. You're 100% right. And here's what bothers me about that. Not only is that so fucking accurate to what they were doing, then they mishandle it because they actually set up both in the original opening and the original ending of the movie more with the Man in Black.
Yes.
And then they fucking cut it out. It is so fucking mind-numbing to me.
Yeah.
It is so fucking mind-numbing because they have all of it there. The pieces are there. It was shot. Like, number one, I'm just going to start getting into this with the original opening versus the new opening. Or the opening we know now.
Right. Now, let me interject really quick before you get there. I'd say, what pissed me off about the whole thing is they had this idea and this whole thing, they're throwing it out there, and yet you set something up in 4 that you don't follow up on. So we're already in danger zone already at this point. And it's mind-numbing. And you can say what you want about the Cult of Thorn and the idea, like how it strays very far from the original idea that Michael was. It wasn't this more supernatural thing. It takes away the Michael is the boogeyman from evil, tries to explain his background. I get all that. But at least if you're going to do it right. And go ahead. Now take over from where you're talking about, because let's get into this failed opening that should have happened.
It's so funny because to your point about the ending of 4 leading into this, so we literally start with the footage from Halloween 4 of Michael being blown away and falling into the sinkhole. But the funny thing is, number one, you never start your movie with footage from a better movie.
Right.
Or a more competent director. Number one, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad precedent for you. But what's fucking fascinating to me is that not only is that where it starts, that basically undermines the ending of Halloween 4.
Completely.
Because they're showing this to say, well, this is how Halloween 4 actually ends. Right. They do eventually show flashes of the actual ending, but it's also done in her night terrors versus like being the actual jumping off point for the film.
Right.
Which is super, super frustrating, and it doesn't make sense to me. So Michael survives because, of course, the sinkhole is actually a mine.
Right.
And he crawls out of a mine into a river, and he is found by an older gentleman. This older gentleman takes him in, and apparently for about a year, Michael is comatose, is how that is the only explanation, that he is comatose for a year.
And the old guy doesn't, like, how does he feed him? How does he do anything? Like, he's not a doctor. I mean, he's like this weird, like, well, at one point he was actually a medicine man of God.
That was what I was going to say,
Yeah.
is originally he was actually a young man known as Dr. Death.
Right.
Who was part of the Cult of Thorn.
Right.
Then I could get on board with it.
Yep.
But now you have this weird opening that doesn't really work. It doesn't really make sense. I wrote in my notes, the opening is chaotic and not in a good way.
Right.
You barely see... They have a kill almost 4 or 5 minutes into this movie, and you can barely tell what's happening.
Right.
It's weirdly shot. It's weirdly edited around. But in doing this, so... The difference here is that the original opening had the Cult of Thorn tie, and Dr. Death was this character who was taking care of Michael.
Right.
Then Akkad had a producer go out and reshoot the opening without Dominique, now with an old guy in place of Dr. Death, who has nothing to do with the Cult of Thorn stuff. He's just a weird old hermit who's like, I'm going to take Michael in.
Right. And that's what makes it so worse. Like, how does that even happen? Like, I mean... okay, the guy's a hermit, so he has never heard of Michael Myers, I guess. Like, even though he was this big cult figure from the 60s, a cult figure from 10 years ago, and just had a big night where he was killing everybody. It's on the news everywhere, I assume. And the guy has no idea, even if he's a hermit living in a van down by the river, so to speak, just like Chris Farley, he's got to know something, and he's just going to take him in. And this random guy in a mask who is probably not very hygienic. He's probably not very, he smells of dog blood, smells of other blood. He's shot, got bullets all in him. I'm like, I'm just going to take this guy in. I'm going to have him hang on to him and see what we can do with him. It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's so, oh God. And to your point, Dr. Death was actually a way to begin the Thorn Call. Now we end up with is a random sequence where Jamie has night terrors, and we see this like thorn tattoo just like all of a sudden on his wrist. Like it was like where does it even? We don't even know where it comes from now. Like it's just there all of a sudden. And we're like in as a standalone movie when we have no idea what's going on. It's like I don't know what that is. I don't know why they're showing it to me. I don't know the significance of it because they never explain it again. They never bring it up again.
No, they do. They bring it up once because the Man in Black has it. They show it once, and it's like, oh look. So the dude who is the Man in Black, who they only shoot from the feet down, by the way, for whatever reason, they really want us to focus on his silver tipped shoes.
Right.
But at one point they do enough to show that he also has it. It's like, oh, look, the same mark. Great. Explain it maybe. Right.
Oh my God. And they don't. And that's the whole idea. And Downey said, I don't care. I just threw it in there because they're going to figure it out for the next one. That's not how you make a franchise work. That's not how you do it. You have to plan ahead. You have to have an idea of like, okay, well, this is going to lead here, at least somewhat. And say what you want about the Star Wars sequel trilogy. They had some ideas of things they were going to do. This seemed like it just was literally like, I have no idea what this is going to be. Your turn.
That's exactly what it is. Like, and again, I mean, I'll bring up Ryan and Star Wars in this. There is a very, very solid argument to be made that the sequel trilogy should have had a more through line thought process, and they probably should have had one writer overlooking everything with the creative teams. But Ryan wasn't just throwing stuff at a wall. At least the stuff he built off of was the stuff that JJ had done in the movie before that, and they left it open for JJ to pick that up and run with it. Well, actually, at the time, Trevorrow.
Right.
And then Abrams came on, and, you know, say what you will about Rise. Rise at least still builds off the themes of The Last Jedi. There's a lot of people who misread Rise and think that it's spitting in the face of Last Jedi, and it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not at all. And so it really shows how important it is to have a actual train of thought and not doing stuff just for the sake of doing it, which is all this movie is.
It's all
And
for the
that's
sake of doing it.
Yeah, it's all just for the sake of doing it. And it's so frustrating because the more I think about it, the more we missed out on actually doing something really interesting with this movie versus actually ending up with what we got. Like,
Yes.
Halloween 5 should have, even if, say you wanted it to be Jamie as like the traumatized hero, you could have just as easily gone about it as Scream 2022 did. Because what did Scream 2022 do? Well, Melissa Barrera is the lead of the movie, and it turns out she's actually haunted by the fucking remnants of the past because, spoiler alert, who's her dad?
Billy Loomis.
Billy Loomis.
Hey, I like that name.
Guess what? Yeah, right.
Very
Gee,
appropriate for us.
why.
Very appropriate for us right now.
But gee, I wonder why. And look at what they did at the end.
Mm-hmm.
She goes full savage Billy Loomis at the end of the movie.
Yep.
But she does it in a last resort to save everyone. But that's what you could have done something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You could have had it that she was traumatized to the point that she snaps and fights Michael or whatever you want it to be.
Right.
But no, instead you had Jamie be this character who is mute almost the entire movie.
Which is the fucking worst choice you could make. She is, like I said, probably the best performer we have in this film. And you're going to make
other
than
Pleasance.
Other than Pleasance, like I said, but he has a little less to do as far as everybody else goes. As far as
I'm not trying to be mean to Danielle Harris. I love Danielle Harris.
It's Donald Pleasance.
But it's Donald Pleasance.
No, I almost, when I say that, almost like it's the unwritten, with the exception of Donald Pleasance,
right?
But they make her mute, and she, even to her credit, even as a mute, she makes this work for her. Like, I don't have an issue with. I have no issue at all with Danielle Harris's performance of the material she is given. She gives it her all. She does it really well with it. It's just so strange. But we have the opening, like we said. Michael comes back a year later after, I guess, hanging out down by the river where nobody ever sees him. And it's so difficult. I mean, we put a lot of our disbelief aside when it comes to Michael and Halloween and horror in general. Like, when the bad guys come back, we always kind of like, oh, okay, none of this really makes sense, but we want them back, so we'll kind of like, okay, smile and nod. This to me is one of the worst ones, because I mean, they actually do. I'd rather have had it shot down the thing and then just have them almost show up randomly without knowing how it happened. I'd rather not know.
Honestly, I would have rather that than if they had left the Dr. Death stuff in, like, fine, then I could have gotten more behind it.
Right.
No, not this.
This is bad. So, okay. So 1 year later, now that's where we are. We get to the point where we're done. We've decided we got to move forward. Michael's back, yada, yada, yada. We see Jamie in this clinic, the Haddonfield Children's Clinic. And this is where we find out she's mute. She's waking up screaming, but her cries are muted. And you mentioned before, we get some of her recollections of the end of Halloween 4, which, again, in an 88-minute movie, or however long this was, you're wasting a lot of time by showing Halloween 4 already, which we've seen, and is a much better movie, as it is.
You know what this reminds me of? Is the Rocky 4 director's cut, where Stallone, for some reason, uses 10 minutes of Rocky 3's footage.
Yes, that's a great point. I didn't even think about it. That's a great point. But we do get that moment, and we get to see where Jamie is now. And this is the interesting part. We get a quick introduction back to Rachel, of course, the hero of Halloween 4, the heroic final girl. We get to meet this new character who I had forgotten. I always seem to forget. I guess it's me getting older. I thought it was the same girl who drove him around in Halloween 4, Lindsay, but it's not. It's a new friend named Tina Williams, who is a new character in this film and series. And I actually really like Tina. This is
Wendy Kaplan is really good.
This character does exactly what needs to be done. And given like what happens as far as things go with, as far as who she is and what her status and what her role is in the movie, she should be someone I don't like because, well, to be honest, I'm jumping ahead. We'll get to it. She basically replaces Rachel as far as like her role in the film. I should hate her because I love Rachel so much, but I can't because she's such a great, fun-loving character to be with.
Yeah, well, look, here you're 100% right, and she's really, really great. And the reason that this movie is even watchable is I really like her relationship with Jamie.
Right.
It's so frustrating because I think Ellie Cornell gets shafted.
Oh, big time.
Because Rachel is killed almost immediately. And they make Rachel really fucking stupid, by the way.
Yeah, she's not very good. It's not even her fault. It's not Ellie's fault. It's 20 minutes in that she dies. I don't understand this decision. Like Dominique was interviewed, and his idea was, well, I kind of want to do the psycho thing. I want to like surprise audiences. I want them to I want to just all of a sudden shock and kill somebody who you don't think can be dead. Yeah. All right. Fuck you. Because quite frankly, that happened in Psycho once. You probably shouldn't try to recreate that because it's not something that you can. It's already done too many times. And what you do in this case, especially because this is a sequel, in Psycho it works. We just met the character and we assumed that she was the leading character. So when she died, it was a shock. In Halloween 5, you're taking a character who the audience has grown, had found in the previous film, liked in the previous film, grew with her, and you're going to kill her off. And when you need that role in this film to make it work. You need that Jamie's defender, friend, whatever it is, somebody, role model, whatever. Like you need the older sister role for your film to work. You have the older sister role. So just because we're going to kill her, just slot Tina into this role. Fuck you, Dominique. Stop being so... this one really pisses me off.
So apparently one of his notes to her throughout the whole time she was on set was be sexy. He kept being like, your role is be sexy, like feed the dog, but do it sexy. And it's not also lost on me that they tease this idea of Ellie Cornell being nude almost the entire time she's in it this time. It feels so weird, to be honest.
It feels very exploitative and like not in a good way. I mean, I know it's weird to say that kind of stuff because the 80s horror films were full of TNA and we're not prudes and like I love the TNA in horror films, but the way this is done just seems not quite what you want to do. And
again, it feels like Friday the 13th.
It does. You're absolutely right. Not at Halloween at all.
At all. And so it bothers me. And you watch it play out. And like, here's the one other thing. This is the one time Michael leaves a dog alive because the dog keeps telling them, get out of the house. And it was like, so I guess Michael's not going to kill the dog in this movie. The dog is like, hey, don't be in the house right now. You should leave.
Right.
And then Loomis calling her and what is the dog okay? He's been barking at a cat or something outside. Get out of the house. Check on him and get out of the house. Loomis is totally unhinged in this. And this is where I would like to formally petition that we change the title of this movie from Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which, by the way, there's no revenge being had in this movie. This title doesn't even make sense.
Who's he getting revenge on?
Literally no one. This title doesn't even fit the movie. There's no revenge being had. No. So we should just title it Halloween 5, Loomis Unhinged.
I'm all on board with that. I will be. I mean, we even call it the unhinging of Loomis. Because Loomis is. I gotta be honest. And one thing that as much as I love, now my dog's getting into it. My dog's unhinged.
Did your dog just make friends with the dog outside?
I think that it might be. Yeah. Oh my God, is Michael outside? All right, I'm gonna pause this here for a minute.
All right, we cut. We're back. Apparently talking about the dogs set off dogs in Paul's house, and here we are. But picking up from that, so for whatever reason, we were talking about how we wanted to change the title to Loomis Unhinged.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's weird about this. Not only does the dog survive, which actually kind of happy that Michael didn't kill a dog for once in a movie.
Well, the problem with that actually is, though, he does kill him. He does eventually kill him. He's in the end, he's in the house dead with Rachel.
Even though we never see it?
Even though we never see it. It's so ridiculous.
We'll get into the death house thing.
Right.
Also very Friday the 13th like.
Yes. The dog is there with Rachel's corpse.
Okay. well, there's that. I missed that part. Or maybe I just didn't notice the dog.
Maybe that's what it was.
Notice the dog.
I actually noted down too. I was like, oh my God, you left the dog alive. And I got there. I'm like, oh, there it is. Nope. Okay. At least they cleaned up that consistency.
So Loomis tells her to leave the house and go outside. Again, to the exploitation of it all, she's only in a robe.
Right.
But here's where things get really, really weird. And not for the reason that you're anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
The next scene cuts to 2 Haddonfield cops coming out of the house to circus music. Oh. And I am not joking when I say actual circus music.
It's literally the Keystone Cops. And it just is not, there's no place in Halloween. It's, from what I read somewhere, it's like a thing in Italian movies or something that they do. Some kind of characters they have is like almost like commedia dell'arte, but like, it just has no place in the Halloween franchise, no matter what you're trying to do. It's just stupid. It is beyond dumb. These are one of the two of the worst characters we have seen in the Halloween franchise, and they make nothing about it good. There's nothing about them that's good.
No, these are two very. The cops in the Halloween movies are like already notoriously not that great at their jobs,
right?
But to go full Keystone Cops with them is such a choice.
So bad.
And it doesn't fit the movie.
Not at all.
And that's like this whole movie, actually.
Yes, that's it. Every choice they make is the wrong choice and doesn't fit the franchise.
Like every choice that they make seems to undermine the next thing because none of it fits what we know Halloween to be. And the fact that this movie is 96 minutes, so it's almost a good 10 minutes longer than the last one, and yet that's probably because the first 10 minutes is nothing but footage from Halloween 4, is kind of hysterical to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, what is with Michael being really terrible at hiding in this movie?
Right? He used to be very good at it, but now he's like right out in the open, broad daylight. I mean, I know
all the time.
He was out in daylight in Halloween, so I can't really complain too much about that. My initial thought was, I don't remember being out in daylight that I realized, yeah, he was in Halloween 1. Obviously, he stalked Laurie, he stalked Brent during daylight, but it was always much better done. It was always from far away, or else it was behind some brushes or whatever for the most part. This one, it's like he doesn't care. He's just like, whatever, I'm out here. I'm just going to be out here testing doors, locking in a window. Like, it's like
standing in windows.
What are you doing?
Like, literally just standing there, and Tina's like, oh, hey, I'm pretty sure there's something in that window.
Yep. It's so god awful.
Like that scene when he's waiting for Ellie and he's going to kill her. He's just in the back of the closet. Then he stands in the closet. He's just standing there. You
see her looking in, and then you see his hand on the rack,
and like, he's moving his hand too.
How does she not see him?
I have many thoughts.
I agree. Many thoughts.
But this leads to the second kill in the movie. They kill Rachel.
What a bad decision. What a bad decision.
What a bad decision. The movie was worse for having done it.
It didn't give Rachel any respect. It kills. It takes a character we've already loved. I mean, I will say, I forget who was it mentioned it. I think I remember Robert Adams in my chat last night. It is something that they did do in horror films a lot in the 80s. They would take survivors from the previous film and kill them off early in the sequel.
Friday loved to do that.
Friday did that. Nightmare did that. Nightmare 3 to 4, especially from 3 to 4. It just, I don't understand why that is. Because if you're gonna bring them back in the first place, and hire to bring them back in the first place, why would you get rid of them so early on? You have established characters that fans can get behind and root for and learn about. Like, it just, storytelling wise, it doesn't make any sense for me. Is it the shocking factor? Is that what they really thought, that this would shock the audience? No, it just probably annoyed the hell out of it. I know it annoyed me in Holiday and Nightmare 4. I know it annoyed me here. Like, it makes very little sense. Again, especially because Tina is basically Rachel for the rest of the film, which is a little bit weird too. Because, all right, so I mean, Jamie is the foster child of Tina's parents, so Tina is her foster sister, and yet, so that relationship's already a little kind of I don't know what the word, like, that's strange. There's always there's a difference between like blood family and foster family already, so there's already that level of disconnect. Then you move on and take Rachel out, and all of a sudden, Jamie, like Rachel's friend Tina, has this like great relationship with her, with the kid that was in the psych ward or the clinic, as they call it, for a year. And she's mute and
Billy.
Right. But how does she with Billy? That's true. But how does Tina have this great relationship with Jamie? We don't really know that. I mean, I guess you could say they left it undone. Maybe it happened during that year, but it just seems so weird to kill off Rachel and slot Tina in that role because it seems so obvious that that's the role that Rachel should have played. But I don't know.
I 100% agree with you. Rachel's character was always the one that was Jamie's rock from 4 over, even though that they would fight and stuff, but that was like the typical sibling type thing.
Right.
Tina's a great character because Wendy's so good, but it's just there to placate the fact that you're killing off Rachel.
Right.
So really you could have just kept Rachel alive and not had Tina, and it would have worked the same way.
Or you could, if you needed a death, if that was the idea, you did a death every so long, they could have killed Tina off. And Tina could have been visiting and Michael kills Tina or something like that. And that's what heightens the moment they think that. And that's what gets Loomis going or whatever. I don't know. Either way, wrong decisions are made. Bad decisions are made, even though I do like the Tina character. Obviously, Loomis is getting more unhinged. As he said, he starts badgering her quite a bit. He starts badgering Jamie almost all the time. It's all he gets worse and worse as he gets along. He's actually literally hovering over this little girl, shaking her, yelling at her. Help me find
Tell
Michael.
me what you know.
Help me what you know. It's like, oh my God, Lewis, you are fucking insane. You would never be allowed near this girl again. Quite frankly. It's so fucking insane. But I love watching it because, again, for all the shit I give this movie, Unhinged Loomis is the best Loomis.
But not long after this, in the movie itself, everyone's kind of doubting Loomis again, which why are you at this point?
Right.
Number one, why are you not just listening to him? But he has a great line. I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew hell would not have him. What a killer line.
Right.
Of this idea that, yeah, Michael's back and I should have known because hell would never keep him.
It is so great. It is so great. I love the fact that he is getting those lines still. That's really what he is there for. He is there to get those lines and deliver them stupendously. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It really is. But at this point, that's what he's there for. It's a great moment what he has with Ben Meeker, the sheriff from the previous. I'm glad we get Ben back because Meeker was also another decent character from before. He's obviously trying to convince him again. And this is actually a funny part about Dominique. Again, a damning thing about Dominique. And this quote, during this time, Loomis says something about, you know better than anybody. You remember what happened to your daughter. And of course, Meeker flips out about that, gets mad about that. Dominic, in his interview, says one reason he was such a good director, he pats himself in the back all the time. Like, I've never seen a director who pats himself in the back more. He actually says, a great character moment that I had to prove that I'm a great character director. I had Ben Meeker pull out the picture of Meeker's daughter from Halloween 4 and show Loomis to show that he remembers what went down. But he says this in the interview, but the part is cut from the movie. So, we don't even get that. We don't even get this supposed great character moment that he's talking about. I don't understand Dominique. I don't understand where he's going. But at the same time, I do like the sequence between Loomis and Meeker. It's very typical Halloween. But it's just done well. And you get these, again, it's what you do when you get characters that we've actually dealt with before. We get a build on the relationship. It doesn't take Loomis long to convince Meeker. Meeker doesn't want to believe, but he believes it quickly enough because he knows Loomis knows what he's talking about. And he gets on board. I love that. I love their connection together.
I really do too. And the Meeker character is better here in the way that some of it is handled. I just wish, though, that they hadn't basically just forgotten about Rachel in the movie.
Right.
Because once Rachel is murdered, no one really brings up that she's been missing until they find the body at the end.
Right.
What?
So fucking weird. I mean, they just assume, oh, her parents went away, so she must have just gone away. Wait, what? Why? God, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's like it's ridiculously done, or ridiculously overdone. But yeah, I agree. It's one of those things that they just skip steps, and it doesn't make any sense.
And that's again kind of the whole movie. So while I like Meeker coming back and still being in the movie and like thinking he's a fine character, I then get more irritated about other changes in the movie.
Right. 100%.
Does that make sense?
Yes. 100%. Oh God. Speaking of stupidity things, I want to move on to a point, talk about Tina's boyfriend, which is the next part of the movie. We get to meet.
Oh, you mean Mikey?
Mikey
or Mike?
We named him Michael. Like,
yes.
I mean, I get that there are a lot of people in the world named Mike, so it does actually make sense that there to be a character named Mike who happened to be around a killer named Michael Myers. But this is where movie logic has to come into play. You don't name your character after the same, like, your killer. There's nobody in Nightmare on Elm Street who's called Fred. There's nobody in Friday the 13th named Jason. Why? Because it's stupidly confusing. And not even confusing because we know the difference, but it's like, why bother even bringing that potential confusion up? For no reason. You could simply name him anything else. It is ridiculously stupid. I hate it. I hate everything about it. And this whole part of it, I actually, Mike, his car and everything leads to some of the worst parts about this movie. I'm not going to lie.
I couldn't agree with you more. And here's what's funny. I do like his death, but the Mike character there's no dialogue really for him. He's just like an awful, awful character who Tina seems so great. I don't know why she's attracted to him. I know it's the bad boy thing, but like It's very confusing to me. And I've never liked that. Mm-hmm. And he just is there to die. Again, it's very Friday the 13th like characters almost.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that for the first time as I've rewatched through these movies, I've noticed how weak some of the characters are in the sequels in a way that I've never noticed before.
It's god awful. They are.
But,
I 100% agree with you.
But for those worried about the Camaro, that was a fake hood that they put on top of the real hood, so they don't actually hurt the car.
Thank God.
Just be aware, because I know people love that. For some reason, people are obsessed with his wax job on it and how great it looks. I don't really understand it.
It's a fucking
and I'm not kidding, by the way. That's a real thing.
Oh, I know. I've heard these people, but
yeah,
I don't. Okay,
I don't understand it.
Me either. Oh, it's funny. It's funny though. So we get to meet Mike and we meet Spitz, who is an interesting character in and of himself. I don't have a problem with Spitz. He's just a goofball.
Again, he's just kind of a nothing character, is the thing.
Although I will say, because I started this whole movie, this whole podcast out with how I enjoyed Halloween 5 more than I usually do, which I did. And here I am ripping at this red still because I do still not like. When I said I liked it more, I meant I liked it more than I did before, and I actually absolutely loathed it before. With all that in mind, I still like a lot of these characters a lot more than the characters that were in Halloween 2.
Yeah, I agree with that at least. But it's because I actually like Tina. And
That's
I like Jamie. And I like Loomis.
I like Rachel when she's around.
I liked Rachel. And I liked Charlie Block. Deputy Charlie Block. Because it's character actor Troy Evans. Anyone who's seen a movie has probably seen Troy Evans.
Yes.
In general. And I forgot he was in this. And he popped up. And I was all, Troy Evans?
Yeah.
That's dope. Are you kidding me? So good. So that was just a nice kind of fun thing, and I liked that a lot. But we go from the Mikey sequence where we're first introduced to him to this scene where Jamie sees the shape outside, and she starts running through the hospital, and he's chasing her. And at first it's a kind of cool scene. Right. That becomes weird very quickly because it becomes psychological, and there's lightning for some reason. And it's all these weird flourishes that have no reason to exist other than because they can.
Right.
And I don't normally get weird about stuff like that.
Me either. Why does it bother us in this one? Because I think it's because there's so many other things in this film that just don't work for us. I think that's probably what it is. When something doesn't work in a movie, the more that doesn't work in a movie, the more you pick it apart, and more things that don't normally bother you, things that you would excuse in good movies, for example, you're less likely to forgive.
I could not agree with you more. And I think that's why, again, I was just kind of irritated because I think that, we were talking about this at the beginning when we did our first Halloween podcast about where we came from with the franchise. And I actually think now, I think I saw 5 before I saw 6.
Okay. That makes sense.
It was very close together because they both would be on a lot. But I started having like weird flashbacks of being younger and watching Halloween 5. So there's a part of me that still enjoys the movie. Because look, the truth is that any Halloween is better than no Halloween.
Absolutely.
How do I know that? Because we are in a dry spell of Friday the 13th movies. We haven't had a fucking Friday the 13th movie since 2009. I would take a terrible Friday the 13th movie at this point.
So would I.
If it meant that I got Jason back on the big screen.
Same with Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010.
Right. So any Halloween is better than no Halloween.
Right.
But this was the first time in all of this where I was like, holy shit, I'm actually a little more irritated than I normally am.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're watching it in succession of this idea that we're building it off of 4. You and I are talking about it. And we're reading all these like lost scripts and these lost story ideas. And it actually irritates me more learning more behind the scenes stuff with this one that I had never like sat down to really think about.
Yeah, you get these things that Dominique throws at us that we get more and more irritated about, that because we like Halloween 4, we liked Halloween 1, we stomached Halloween 2. Also, like, okay, it's fine. It's still a Michael Myers movie. It's still fun. This one is just, it feels like hashtag not my Halloween at this point anymore. And that's the major problem. I mean, Michael eventually kills Mike. Michael kills Mike. And then we see him driving around in the car. And in a way that shouldn't bother me, because Michael drove the station wagon. He drives around in these movies before. But like the way he does it in this film, like we don't even know what he's doing necessarily. Why is he even there? Is he going after Jamie? Is Tina, because Tina was at the house? Like there's no real reason that he's doing any of this at this point. Michael is just out there randomly killing. And that's okay if that's what you're set up to do. You're set up that Halloween, Halloween was set up where he's just killing people. He does take an interest in Laurie, and that's what it was. And if he just took an interest in Tina, that'd be fine too. But we've already set up this basis that because Jamie is his niece, that he wants to kill Jamie. The whole thing is about him getting to Jamie. And this is like he's doing this whole all around these stores and the cars and everything else, not leading him to Jamie. And he's still just doing it.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. And as this stuff has also been happening, because, we've been talking about the fact that he already killed Mikey. We also forget Loomis goes back to the house at one point, to the Myers house, and he's walking around looking for Michael. And for some reason, the man in black is there.
Oh, God. That's right.
He's just there.
Right.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. I want to know how he got in the house, but Man in Black is wandering the halls.
Yep.
And you're just going, wait, what? Really? And this continues to be how irritating this stuff is, because first we see him get off the bus. He's walking through town. That's when it's like he goes to the house. Everyone's there. That's when we realize, look, it's a Gothic mansion. And the only reason it's this Gothic mansion thing is because they couldn't find a house they liked.
Right.
To replicate the other Myers houses. What?
They had set pieces in mind. The big finale between Loomis and Michael, and it needed space in it. So they decided to just find a different house, which makes it feel like we're not in the same house, which makes it feel like we're not in the same universe, which makes it feel like more like hashtag not my Halloween at this point. It just more to take us out of the whole thing.
So we're in the house. Loomis is walking around. We see that's when we find out, oh, hey, look, he's also got a thorn tattoo.
Right. I
must be connected. No, I got you. Remember, I took a lot of notes on this movie.
I know.
Because I was just sitting there being frustrated as I was watching it.
I probably turned away in disgust at some point. That's probably why I missed that too.
My exact notes was, how did Boots Guy get in the house? And hey, he and Michael have matching tattoos. Coincidence? I think not.
And it isn't. We learned in Halloween 6, kind of, sort of, maybe ish.
So it's a weird thing. This leads to exactly what you're talking about, where he finally kills Mikey. Mm-hmm. And then he gets a new mask for reasons. To scare Tina?
Right? I mean, I guess playful Michael, but like at the same time, like it just, again, does Tina look like Lori? Does Tina look like Rachel? Does Tina look like a grown-up Jane? I don't understand what the concept is. Again, it would be okay if the Michael story hadn't been set up. Like, you can agree or disagree about the sister subplot, which is fine. I get people who don't like the subplot. I don't mind the subplot of Lori being the sister and that whole family connection. I don't mind that as much as some people do. I prefer it not to be, but it doesn't bother me to that point. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't do what you need. You have to like either commit to it or go against it. And here they just kind of flip flop back and forth. And when you look at Michael's actions, it's like, I don't know what Michael's doing. No idea what Michael's doing at all. I mean, last time he took 10 years off, and then somebody mentioned Jimmy being alive, and that's what made him crunch his fist and everything else and get going. Here, he takes a year off, and he kind of like comes back to life and kills this guy who obviously nursed him for a year. And then
for what? Again, I can't get over that. Some dude nursed Michael for a year. He never took the mask off in that year.
Right? Oh, God.
Okay. So then we get to the hospital sequence. We're back at the care facility thing. Hospital may not be the right word.
Clinic. That's they use. They're using clinic.
But they're doing a Halloween costume contest.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of this, all I could think is, why are they doing this on the staircase?
Mm-hmm.
Of all the places to do this. Also, we forgot to mention, someone in the movie does say out loud, they should really ban Halloween in this town. You're goddamn right you should. Because every time you guys open your doors on Halloween night, Michael comes tramping through and starts killing people.
That's so they play with that a lot. They play with the whole idea of them banning Halloween, and they really should have committed 100% to going for it at one point.
Right. So they're doing the Halloween costume contest, which of course means that Jamie's about to have a fucking meltdown in public because that's the setup. And of course, it's while Michael is in the car and he's going after Tina, she starts having the meltdown. But did you get it? Mikey and Michael are the same. So that's why they're in the car. He killed a guy named Mikey so that he could pretend to be him. So when she called him Mike or Michael, they're the same. Don't you get it, PLD? Don't you get the joke? Don't you get it? It is so frustrating to me because this is the kind of stuff that Dominique was trying to do. He thought he was being clever and he's not.
He's not. He thinks he's a smart. That actually sums up Dominic very well. He thinks he's being smart. He ain't. He ain't smart.
No, he's not. Really and that continues to be how it is. But here's what I do love in the sequence with Michael and Tina in the car is that Tina's whole focus is getting to the clinic because she wants to see Jamie.
Right.
And I think that's actually like a really sweet thing that works really well with that character. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted more of from the movie.
Right.
Less of whatever nonsense is going on around it. I would have rather this movie had been like, honestly, make this a fucking road trip movie with Tina and Jamie on the run. I'd watch the shit out of that movie.
100%, because those are characters we like. Have Loomis like with them or Loomis like trailing after them as well. I'd love that shit. That would have been great. Instead, we get this fucking Mikey. Movie. Instead, Michael Myers killing Mikey so he can wear his fucking mask that Tina. It just makes no fucking sense at all. Of course, let's lean into it now. Of course, so Tina's driving around Mike, and Mike's like, They even have the worst part about it, the thing that you know it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen as soon as Tina got in the car with Michael, dressed with the goblin mask, whatever it was. She kisses the mask. Like this whole thing about kissing him when the mask on, and you see Michael's eyes like through the mask. And it's just so god awful. They're going to this party in the Tower Farm. Jamie gets this premonition again about something being wrong. And this is, again, so ridiculous. Jamie gets his premonition that Tina's in trouble, and they find out where Tina is because she actually starts finally talking. She breaks out of her slump a little bit, her mute slump. Store woman, big woman, cookies. And all of a sudden, like, what? Timmy's down the well, lassie? Oh, God, it's a store. They said like the cavalry after they get Tina. Drive up.
Dude, they literally bring every possible person, it seems like, that's a Haddonfield cop. It's almost like she was robbing the place.
Right, on this location, on the whims and the ramblings of a mute psychic girl. Like it goes against everything Halloween cops have done forever. I mean, if Loomis was there, and Loomis is there, so okay, so send somebody to get her. They send one cop car to pick her up. That's all you need to do. But like it's like this whole big thing, and then of course Mike, instead of confronting the cops, decides to drive off and manages to drive to Tower Farm because he knows where it is and he wants to go to the party. Obviously. Oh God, this movie is exhausting.
It really is, and it doesn't get better from here.
No.
And that's the thing. So this stuff goes on. And also, Tina finally gets to hear Jamie speak. The first thing we hear her say is Tina. So Here's the other thing. This whole time, you telling me that Rachel never got her to speak again? Her own sister?
Nope, but Tina does.
Great. Okay. So that's where we're at. I still found it really odd that everyone was still way too calm about the fact that Rachel has been missing.
Right. Especially after there's issues going on. We're seeing issues pop up around town.
Yeah. Like it just seems odd.
And then we have Tina talking to Jamie and Jamie finally trying desperately to have her stay with her, and this feels like it's out of character to a degree. And maybe this is maybe I'm gonna posit something that maybe this is the only thing that makes the Tina replacing Rachel work is that Rachel most definitively would have stayed with her instead of going to the party, whereas Tina is still young, still dumb, still wants to party, yada yada yada, and leaves Jamie behind. Fine, I kind of get it, but the way she's like so overly just refuses to listen to anything. I mean, Loomis is like pretty much yelling at her, and she's like, "I don't want to be responsible. I wrote the line it was. She's like, "I always refuse to. I shirk responsibility, whatever it is," and she leaves. Maybe that's the only reason it works, but still, even though you went out of your way to establish that Tina and Jamie have this great relationship, and yet she's going to drop her drop what she speaks. So obviously she's making a breakthrough, and she's still going like, yeah, I'm going to go with my boyfriend who left me and abandoned me. I just got to go to this party and make it work. Like, I'm rambling.
Right. And no, but you're right, because here's the other thing, right? So she leaves, and they do make it a point where she even says she doesn't make good choices or whatever. Like, because she's kind of supposed to be the bad girl, even though she's really not ultimately either.
Right. Right. She isn't. It's this weird, like, they don't commit to anything with her. That's the problem.
Well, so they even said originally she was supposed to wear the devil costume in the next scene at the barn house.
Yep.
But they changed it because they didn't want her to be seen as the devil.
Right. Which is like,
great.
What the fuck?
What the fuck?
This is what we're worrying about. This is what we're worrying about at this point.
Right. So, in all of that, they have the scene, she leaves, then Jamie gets out again, mind you. How the fuck is no one paying attention to her?
That's a great question. Jamie is a master of escape.
Apparently, because they lose her so many times in this movie. And this is just another one of them.
Yep.
Where they're like, actually, Jamie gets out again and is gone and just, what?
It's like, really, dude? Really? This, I mean, I get it's chaotic at this point, but like Tina just made her, like, just started speaking. There's stuff going on with Rachel missing. Tina's just gone, and Loomis is there, and he's going to let her leave. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. So then we get the scene where we all end up at the barn house. That's where Tina ends up. Jamie is trying to also get there.
Right. With Billy, with friend Billy.
With friend Billy.
The stutterer.
And then we fucking play the same card that Halloween 2 and Halloween 4 have already played, and it is tired at this point. They almost kill someone wearing a Michael mask who is not Michael. Again.
The Ben Tramer scenario, which just happens way too often in Halloween at this point. And yeah, again, especially now, here we are, Halloween 5. They're still selling these masks in these get-ups. What the fuck, dude? What the fuck? And like, okay, and even then, Tina seems like involved in this plan. The whole thing is they set up the prank. They got the 2 Keystone cops outside because Loomis has them travel to follow Tina after Tina refuses to stay at the clinic. They play a prank on them. They have Spitz dress up as Michael chasing Tina and her friend Samantha, who we met a little bit earlier on, and pretend to be Michael. And the cops draw their guns on him, and they still don't really actually back down at first. It takes them a couple of minutes. Like, I'm surprised they're not shot. Like, it's a stupid prank to begin with. And yeah, again, I got to go back to teens are stupid and everything, but they seem like they're beyond stupid for some of the stuff they're trying to do here. And maybe alcohol plays into it. I don't know. But it didn't come off real. It came off dumb. But then, of course, the Spitz and the 2 girls all of a sudden go into the farm, the big barn, which we spent a fucking long time in. And a lot of cat and mouse games being played, and that's no pun intended, with the kittens there and everything else.
I would die for the kittens too.
Well,
that's
yeah,
an actual
absolutely.
note I wrote down.
Yeah, the kittens. But here's the funniest part about that whole sequence is we're getting there. All right, so I get why Spitz and Samantha are going out there. What exactly is Tina planning to do? Is this planning to be a 3-way up at this point? Is that what's going on?
This movie doesn't really say.
Right. It's a weird thing, though, right?
I think she just follows them out there because she disappears. Again.
Right? Where'd she go? No idea.
And again, this barn sequence goes on, number one, forever.
Way too long.
It's really poorly put together and really poorly paced.
And there's 3
has
fake
like
outs.
3 jumps. Yeah, I was going to say it has like 3 fake out jump scares in a row that don't work. I'm glad that you and I had the exact same thought in that moment.
It's like,
mind you,
why is this happening? Like, fake outs are typical horror fare. You get those ones where, because there's jump scares and there's times where something happens and the director or whoever wants to lull the audience in, give them a fake out, and then go, oh, okay, we're okay, and then hit it again later on. But you keep faking somebody out, it just gets less effective the more you do it, especially if you do it in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
Yeah, I literally wrote that down too. I was like, they play up the fake Michael way too much in this.
Way too much.
That whole, because him like going after her, and then he goes immediately from pretending to kill her to having sex with her.
I didn't know that was a turn on. My God.
I mean, I guess it gets the endorphins going, but what a weird choice. Like, you can't turn someone on unless you tried to kill them. That says a lot about you, Spitz.
Yeah. God. And of course, Tina shows back up again and sees a kitten and blood. And she so Michael finally does show up, and there's they finally stop faking us out, and Michael kills Spitz and Samantha. And they're fine kills. They're not going to lie. They're not like
death is great.
Pitchfork death is pretty good. The skit is good. There's some good moments and everything else.
Scythe.
Sorry, Scythe. I would say skit.
Sorry, I don't mean to be that person, but they also said it in the making of. Someone called it a scythe, and I was like, it is Scythe, isn't it? At least that's how I've always said it. Unless I'm the wrong one.
I don't know. Let's look it up.
Oh, Jack has an answer.
Jack wants to let you know what it is.
Jack, is it a scythe or a skip?
I'm going to pause. My daughter's no idea we're recording. 1 second.
So, the skith or the scythe, and actually, I believe PLD just looked it up, and Jack was trying to tell him, PJ's right, you moron, listen to him. So thank you, Jack, for that. He kills them with the scythe. Actually, I have a great Halloween 5 shirt with him with the scythe on the front of it. Because, look, I may be hard on this movie. I still own shirts from it.
Of course.
It's Halloween. It's Michael. How do you not?
We only are overly critical of stuff we love to a degree.
Correct. Like the Munsters. And I still really want the T-shirt that Frat Rag is putting out of the Munsters, but that's beside the point. The other thing about this scene, though, that I really dislike of the Keystone Cops of it all is that these dudes are sitting outside as this all goes on, and then they let Michael walk out, and they don't even, like... It's just a weird choice because then they die.
Right.
But, like, I don't understand the point of it.
I don't either. I really don't. Their whole idea, their characters could be taken out of some film and it wouldn't be any different at all. If anything, it'd be better. To be honest with you, because they just waste time on them playing their crazy eights, talking crap and making jokes that we are lousy cops. And what are you doing here? You're just not in the right film. You have no idea what you're supposed to be doing.
They're the only actual Haddonfield police in the entire movie, is my opinion.
Yeah. That's fair.
Because they're really bad at their jobs. Everyone else is actually pretty good at it. Which actually, so right after this sequence, Jamie finally shows up and they find Tina. And this is where we find out that Quentin Tarantino really loves Halloween 5 because he was like, I'm going to take Michael's sequence where he's driving around in a car trying to kill Jamie and make an entire movie about it and call it Death Proof. Because this is the most bizarre fucking sequence, and I'm pretty sure that old man Peabody in Back to the Future is having a fucking heart attack watching this movie because they just so many trees because Michael just keeps driving over them.
Oh, I gotta tell you, dude, this scene, far be it for me to criticize the genius of Quentin Tarantino. This is one of my least favorite sequences of the movie. Like Michael using the car as his weapon just feels so off. Michael loves, from everything I've learned about Michael, he loves the personal touch of killing somebody, the inserting the blade into somebody. That's why he doesn't use guns. That's why he's a blade guy. He wants to be up close, see the death go into some, at least the soul leave somebody's eyes, so to speak. That's what he does the entire first 3 movies he's in. And yet here we are, he's chasing around like Twisted Metal. And I just fucking don't get it. I don't get it. I don't like it. I think it's one of the worst decisions they could have made. Again, this is not a Halloween movie. I probably wouldn't care as much. It does not work for me with Michael doing this.
No, it's genuinely a very odd choice. I kind of enjoy it as like an oddity, but it doesn't feel right. And it's never felt right. And that's the biggest problem is that, again, to your point, Michael always seemed like he was more in it for the like brutality of it. I'm going to say it and it's going to sound weird, but like when you think about it, everything about what he does, it's very much like, how do I want to say this? It's a very intimate thing for him. Yeah, that sounds weird, but but like you're right. It's that intimate nature, right? Like it's
seeing the soul leave somebody's eyes is what he gets off on.
Right. And so there's something almost tantalizing about that for him.
Right.
So this idea that he would kill Jamie in a car doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't at all.
This whole scene is kind of fun, but it's very strange how it's in here, but I do enjoy it. And of course, this leads to the explosion in the movie because a Halloween movie has to have an explosion post-Halloween too. Michael drives his car straight into a tree and it fucking explodes and he survives it.
It does exactly. I don't get it at all. It just doesn't make sense. God. Yep. But
that's the thing that happens in this movie.
It does happen. And it leads on to probably one of the best moments of the film for me. I actually like this moment. The only one of the few I really did like was Loomis comes, saves Jamie and Billy, who went to find Tina. And Loomis decides to call Michael out, kind of like almost reminiscent of Halloween 4 in a way, like where he was at the restaurant. He's like that moment where he gets that one-on-one with him. Loomis decides, I'm going to make this work, no matter how crazy I am. If I have to use Jamie as bait, I'm going to call Michael out and say, this is what I want to do. Meet you at home.
And we're back. Sorry, that was a weird cut. But if you listen to Sith Council, you probably just heard me on there because Christian Harloff called me to talk to me about Shadow of the Sith. So if you heard me talking about Shadow of the Sith because you were watching Sith Council, that happened midway through us talking Halloween 5. So here we are. Dipper's very excited about it, apparently. But what a weird thing. I love doing it. Hopefully I'll be back. I love Star Wars, and I would love to talk about it. And I think eventually we're going to do it on here, actually. Probably.
Yeah, we're definitely at some point. I can't not. I'm a big Star Wars guy, so absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, I was talking about the Loomis sequence at the end here, where Loomis calls out Jamie, or calls out Michael Myers after saving Jamie and Billy. To kind of I said it reminded me a little bit of the Halloween 4 sequence in the restaurant. We had the great stare down. It's obviously not nearly as good, and it's cheapened down version of it, but it gives you that kind of like mano a mano gunslinger last. Let's like get a big, Loomis versus Michael finale that you're thinking we're trying to get. And
it's so great because, once again, Pleasance rewrote the dialogue for this. And one of the things he did when they were putting the scene together is he actually went to the actor playing Michael, Don Shanks, who was not supposed to be there that day.
Right.
And he said, will you just stand out in the woods? He goes, I don't need to see you, but would you do this favor for me? I just need to feel like you're really out there.
Right.
Because I need it to feel like I'm really talking to you.
Right.
And I thought that was such a great note because it does feel a little more tangible knowing that, right?
Yep. Agreed.
And there's this great line where he says, it'll destroy you too. One day, Michael, this rage which drives you, you think it will kill. If you kill them all, it'll go away, but it won't. It's so great. And it works so well. And so then him trying to goad him to go back to the house is such a great idea because he goes, if I can get him back to the house, I can trap him and I can end this.
Right. And that's the whole thing Loomis has been trying to do for the whole time he's been around. So I agree. That's exactly, I feel the same way. I kind of feel like it had that kind of moment. It's like the moment we've been lacking throughout this entire movie. This is the best part of the movie as far as I'm concerned. It feels like it's setting up something. Now what we get doesn't quite live up to it, but it is still pretty cool at that moment. So interestingly enough, they go back to Michael's house and Loomis sets these traps up. And in a weird way.
Also, can we...
Go ahead.
I want to make it clear. This idea of going back to the house is he's straight up using Jamie as bait because he's a psychopath.
Exactly. Using a 9-year-old girl as bait. But you know what? Jamie's all for it, it seems like, even though she's only a 9-year-old kid. So I don't know if she can make that kind of decision. But it's actually kind of funny to think about. He interrogates her. He's like, will you help me? The whole time he's been, can you help me? Can you help me? Finally, he's like, what do you need me to do? Basically just sit there and bait. But either way, they go back to the house. They set it up. This is where, of course, Troy Evans is in there guarding Jamie on the second floor. Now, they get a distress call from the clinic, and then the police leave to that location. Now, this is actually a cutscene at one point where Michael actually slaughters everybody at the clinic in a way to get that to happen, but that's cut. So all we know is that all of a sudden the clinic gets a call and all the police leave. It's like, so go ahead.
So do you know what happened here?
Go ahead.
Because this entire sequence was cut from the movie.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. This whole thing was cut. It was planned out. They did it. They shot it. And yet all of a sudden it's not in the movie. So it makes very little sense.
And yet, so with all that, like you brought up that they cut it, but apparently this was like a big deal and a big fight behind the scenes.
Yeah, it really was.
And it shows why, because now this sequence doesn't make sense. But apparently it was very much Michael taking on all of Haddonfield's cops.
Yep.
It was a fully shot and done sequence featuring a bunch of stuntmen and like explosions in a firefight. Now, I don't know if this footage has ever been released. I want to say it has not.
I haven't seen it.
They definitely finally released the original opening, so I'm sure that this footage exists somewhere outside.
It must somewhere. I can't believe it hasn't been released on like the Blu-ray collection at some point.
That's what I mean. Is like I've never really gone through a deep dive of that stuff, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think it's ever seen the light of day. But this is a perfect example of I would honestly love to see them go back and re-edit some of this stuff into the movies in a way that they did with the producer's cut of 6.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Because I'd love to see I would love to see a lot of the original ending, the original beginning, and this put back in to see if it changes the movie, even a little bit.
And real quick, I did a quick internet search. It does seem like it's not out there because it's been lost potentially.
Well, that's what they said about the original opening too, and then they found it.
So maybe it is out there somewhere. So either way, interesting to see.
Yeah, so just wanted to bring that up. Like, I think it's a very interesting what if, because honestly, I don't think this is going to sound so weird. I don't think Michael kills enough people in this movie.
I agree. It's like and they're just kind of weirdly done. It seems like they're not impactful kills either. That's the thing. They're just kind of like, oh, we need to kill here. Let's do it. The only ones that felt normal Halloween kills was probably the barn kills. Those are the two ones that felt like emotional, like what was supposed to happen.
Because like Tina's death kind of sucks in the same way that Rachel's does. Like hers feels like an afterthought. Yeah,
I mean, I like that Tina sacrifices her life saving Jamie. I mean, actually makes good on the character, and I get that to a degree, but it's like it's not the climactic saving you'd think. I mean, and of course, Rachel's death just pisses me off anyway, so I can't even really judge that as anything else but pissing me off.
Right. I'm with you, man. Yeah. I'm 100% with you.
Can we also note, talking about the clinic scene that was missing, we do get them obviously going to the clinic because they get the call. Can we say that we have the officer that's in this cop car outside the Myers house? It might be the worst ADR I've ever seen in movies.
Yeah, because they've clearly fucking changed stuff.
Yeah. It's so
really fucking bad.
It doesn't even look at all genuine. Like I've seen things look not genuine before, but this one is like just sticks out so poorly, so much. Like this is like a totally different guy, and it just makes no sense. And I hate it. It takes me right out of the movie right away. But
I'm gonna say too, this whole third act is just messily put together because it's very clear there was differing ideas.
Yep.
And that's really frustrating. Like really fucking frustrating. And the more I think about it, the more I get really irritated because we should have had the firefight with Michael at the clinic.
Yep.
We should have had all of that because the other thing is then we see all the cops leave.
Right. Yeah.
Because the idea is that the clinic is compromised.
Yep.
So they all go there. We should have seen it because then you're leaving literally Loomis, Jamie, and this one cop, Charlie, again, Troy Evans, kind of there. And then one cop who's sitting in a cop car outside named Eddie, who is literally the dumbest cop who's ever lived.
Yes. Well, compared to the Keystone Cops, is a genius. The cops from the farm.
Dude, no. He's sitting there and he's like, there's a car coming up on me.
That's true.
Are you going to do anything about it? No, he sits there and then the cop car crashes into him.
Like, hey!
Why didn't you get out of the car?
That's a good point.
What were you thinking?
Good point.
Eddie is a bad cop.
He is a bad cop. Eddie gets killed, and of course they see Michaal's out there now, and Charlie's going to go try to call everybody back. And Loomis, of course, is like, no. It almost felt like Loomis set up the clinic thing. That's how it felt because Loomis almost wants this one-on-one with Michael, and I don't know if that's true or not.
It sure feels like it.
But but the fact that I don't know for sure is a bad piece of filmmaking. But one of the best Loomis reads. This whole movie. One of my favorite Loomis reads. Like I don't know why this made me laugh, but I noted it down because I loved it. When Charlie goes to talk on the radio to bring Meeker back, and Loomis destroys the radio because he wants one-on-one time with Michael. And Charlie goes after Loomis for a second, and Loomis brings out his gun. And just this great moment, he goes, Charlie. The way he does it, I don't know why it's so funny to me, but like he acts like all sort of like Loomis is like this cool ass gangster. Almost the way he's like Charlie, because he sets him up because he's going to go 1-on-1. Loomis wants Charlie protecting Jamie while Loomis goes down and faces Michael one-on-one. I don't know why I like it so much, but I do.
Also, okay, did you notice? Does Loomis throw his gun into the bushes before he goes back in the house?
I didn't notice that, but maybe
he straight up throws something into the bushes, and I thought it was his gun. And I didn't. I should have rewound, but I was like, "Wait, what's happening here?"
Right.
And I was almost too dumbfounded to go back, but I was like 95% sure he threw his gun into the bushes, and I was like, "That's a loaded weapon. What are you doing?" But it kind of checks out because Loomis doesn't have a gun.
Yeah,
Loomis uses a tranquilizer.
Right. Which is weird, too. You're going to throw away the gun and use the tranquilizer. The tranquilizer's going to work on Michael. 6 guns to the chest. 6 bullets to the chest. Explosion in a hospital. A SWAT team unloading on him. And a trank's going to take out Michael?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's real bad. It's real. Okay, so this whole third act is Jamie versus Michael in the Myers Gothic mansion that was apparently from Dark Shadows.
Right.
It's the only thing I can come up with. This whole thing is so odd because it literally just becomes them running through the house. There is a great sequence, though, involving her in the laundry chute.
Yep. That
is so good. The other thing is, did you realize that this is just them doing Home Alone before Home Alone?
Yes, I realized that I was watching. Like, this is really what it is. Loomis has set up traps a little bit. Jamie has set up the trap. She's running.
The laundry chute is used.
Yeah, the laundry chute is used. It's exactly that way. It's funny. It's interesting watching Loomis go out of him at first. Loomis, of course, gets knocked out pretty quickly.
I love the moment, though, between him and Michael.
I did love that, too.
I really love that moment because, like, there's actually this idea of real resonance in that moment. Oh, wait. Also, Loomis pulls a gun on Charlie.
Yeah, so that's the part we're talking about. The Charlie. That's the line read he did it's when Charlie, Loomis breaks the radio, and then
this was me going back to my gun point, though. Right, sorry. Okay.
But that's what that Charlie is when. That's because Loomis pulls out the gun at that moment. It has the Charlie moment.
Yeah. Which again, Troy Evans.
Yeah.
What a great character actor. Yeah. But I really love the because that's really one of the only times we've seen a real one-on-one confrontation between Michael and Loomis in that regard, and without the violence at first.
Right. Exactly.
The mask looks awful in it. It something about the mask looks real weird in this scene.
I actually noted that too.
You did?
I know that. I said this is my least favorite mask. I think of all of them. To be honest, with this whole thing, it just feels off. Feels wrong. It doesn't feel like it. Just takes me completely out. Off.
Yeah. But it still works. As a scene, I think it's really well put together.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, I love that scene because it leads to when Michael finally attacks him, that slash, it feels a little visceral.
Yes.
Because it really works for me. And then slamming his head through the glass and then throwing him off the banister, that's good stuff.
Yes.
Because it feels earned in that moment. And again, I think that some of the best stuff in this movie is honestly the stuff between Loomis and Michael.
It's unsurprising the stuff that works best. I mean, given that they're there's 3 people in this movie who really end up mattering, is it Michael, Loomis, and Jamie.
Yeah.
Everyone else really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Tina has a great run, but when she's killed, it's all over. And she ultimately ends up not giving a whole lot to the story itself. The story itself, she's more window dressing than anything else. Rachel is definitely window dressing, unfortunately, and to serve as shock or whatever it is. But yeah, Loomis versus Michael is what we really want to see, and it works because Donald Pleasence can just deliver good dialogue like that. He can take dialogue that probably wouldn't work with many other actors, but it works for him.
Because he rewrites it and he reworks it and he knows the character because he's played the character now 4 times to this point.
Yeah, this is 4th time in over 11 years. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So this leads to the chase through the house between Jamie and Michael. Mm-hmm. I'll say this. Don Shanks is very good as Michael. He's very large.
Yeah.
which is very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not like, I really love these moments, but the thing I don't love is that we get to the, let's talk about the laundry chute thing first. This is a great scene.
Yeah, 100%. It actually builds suspense. It does things right. It's a great horror sequence in a horror movie. It's a slasher sequence in a slasher movie, and it works. It builds. You get nerve. You feel it in your bones when you're watching it. You feel nervous for Jamie. You want to get. And you watch. They build up the temptation, or they build up the tension very well. Michael, like, going into the room, seeing the door close, seeing the laundry chute open. Everything about it is just well done. To the point where he goes downstairs. It's all about how quickly they move. He moves slowly, like he should. You see him get that moment where he realizes he can stab through the metal. Like, he tries to open up the bottom, can't get it open, and just like kind of looks up and goes, I can just stab right through this thing, and starts stabbing through it. Get us this great shot of Jamie like stepping on the knife as it comes through in a way. It's a great little sequence there. If this whole movie was shot like that, and that was the basis for it, I think this movie would have a whole hell of a lot better.
I agree with you 100%. I think that would absolutely have been the way to do it. And it's really frustrating that that's not how it went. And I really wish it had, but here we are. And that is what it is. And this scene is great because it's visceral. Again, I think most of this third act is kind of this way. There's a more visceral vibe to it. It starts to feel like a Halloween movie. Mm-hmm. The problem is that it's too little too late. It's a good third act, but it's also a messy third act because once we get through this, we get to the weird fucking Friday the 13th thing where somehow Michael. So here's what's interesting about this. Number one, this feels like leftovers from the unused Halloween 4 concept of Judith's grave.
Yes.
Being in the house.
Yes.
See, I did my research, guys. My power was just out. Which Zombie would later use in his Halloween. Right. So it feels like a little bit of a throwback to that. But the problem for me is
also he had the tombstone is in Halloween 1 that Judith Myers tomb.
But the body was not.
Right, exactly.
And in Halloween 4, in one of the drafts, the body was there.
Right, and I know. It's a good connective tissue back to the original, so it makes sense.
Right.
Like Michael would do.
And so here, he's created a shrine to the dead people, and it feels a little like Jason's shrine to his mom. And it just doesn't quite work for me.
Right.
It's just kind of a weird choice that I've never really understood. Especially because then Jamie gets into the coffin and is just like ready to let him kill her.
Well, here's the weird thing about that. I mean, it worked better for me than it did for you, mainly because of Halloween 1, where he put the tombstone up and laid. It's not Annie's body; it's the other. I can't remember their character's name now. Laurie's other friend is laid out on Linda. Thank you. Linda's laid out on the bed with Judith's headstone. So to me, the whole shrine thing actually works like a Michael thing for me. I get it's a little overdone comparatively in this one, but that part works. The Jamie getting into the coffin thing is kind of like a throwback to the script thing I talked about yesterday, where there was a script idea where Jamie would be like all into Michael, like thought that Michael was a good guy. And there's a lot of that connection to. I kind of feel like this scene was a little based on something from that. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. It's like, because you just spent your entire time running away and you're going to get in the coffin that Donald Pleasance Loomis actually screamed at her much earlier in the film. He stole a 9-year-old coffin. What do you think that's for? And so she gets in there, but then she uses the emotional moment. And I don't know how you feel about this. I know a lot of Halloween fans don't ever like seeing Michael show emotion. And I get that. But for me, my own personal take on Michael Myers is that the shape is like an evil presence that took over Michael when Michael was a kid and has always lived there. But I always kind of feel like Michael, the boogeyman shape aspect, pushed Michael down or oppressed him completely. I do think there is a sliver of good of Michael in there, like down deep. Now, we're never going to see a Michael redemption story or Michael turn to the light or anything like that. But I do feel like it's a good story to have, that this evil boogie monster does have that sliver of emotion that kind of just sneaks out every once in a while. And in this case, when Jamie says uncle, stops him for a minute, it's that connectivity. Even though he wants to kill her, it's still that connectivity tissue. And he actually asks to see him, and he does. And it's this kind of weird give and take for a second. I actually like it, and I actually like the tear moment because Michael cries for just a second. I don't believe that's Michael Myers' shape crying. It's the good kid in him that's down well deep. The innocence that has died, like basically died a long time ago. It sinks out just a touch. And then, of course, it just like, well, no, I can. And he pulls the mask back on and starts killing again. Like the evil takes over again. I always loved the little aspects of that story. So that never bothered me like it bothered some people. So this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be a no from me, dog.
Okay.
I can't stand this.
That's fair.
You know why? I hear what you're saying, but if the movies hadn't gone so far out of their way to go, look, there's no good in Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could buy into it. But the truth is that like they've really plugged this point home with Loomis going, there's nothing but evil behind those eyes. There's nothing there.
Let me tackle you that just for a second real quick. To me, it's like Obi-Wan saying there's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. Obi-Wan's given up on Anakin a long time ago, just like Loomis gave up on Michael a long time ago. That's what it gets to me. Maybe as a Star Wars fan, maybe that's what I buy into just a smidge. I don't want to see.
Number one, are you saying I'm not a Star Wars fan?
No. I'm just saying as I growing up when I was a kid when I saw this, I was like, "Kids and it happened." That's it. So is that. But go ahead.
I don't jive with trying to humanize him. It's part of my problem with Zombies Halloween.
That might be our difference. This is why I actually like the Zombie Halloween better than you do in a way. For that reason, maybe.
Yeah, I don't like trying to humanize Michael. The tear thing is especially egregious. I hate that. I get mad Dr. Doom crying at the World Trade Center Ground Zero vibes from that. Like, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Marvel did a special 9/11 issue of The Amazing Spider-Man because as most people know, the 616 Marvel comics all take place in New York or in that, like, a real world version of New York. Right. And it does not sit well with me that in that there's a panel of Doom shedding a tear over what happened.
I agree with that. That's, to me, awful. I don't like it the same way, but I hate that moment, to be honest with you.
No, right. I get that same feeling from this, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so it's just a weird thing for me. It doesn't quite work because it feels like we're trying too hard to humanize him. That's all. And I don't love that. I think it's a slippery slope if we do that, if you will.
I agree there's a potential for it being a slippery slope. I wouldn't want to see any more of that. I wouldn't want to see it happen a lot. But the one moment that gives him pause for me makes it a little more of an engaging character, especially with what we've done.
Totally fair. And I get it. Like, I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. It's not that at all. For me, it's just been a moment. I love how animalistic he becomes after, but the thing is that to me, Michael's kind of just an animal. Like,
I think that's what I mean, and that's what I liked about it, because he almost like served to reset him. Like for a second there, he showed that there's still somewhat of a good person side, a little bit somewhere not good. I guess I didn't say good person. There's like a sliver of innocence left in him, but the evil, the shape sees that and goes even like above and beyond, and I'm like, now you're fucking dead, because that's what Michael does, and it is almost like a resetting of Michael, which I that works for me. But,
yeah, and look, so I'll say this. I do get it. I think it's nicely put together. It just doesn't quite gel for me just because it feels so unnecessary. But I do like that this leads to she escapes. They find Loomis again. She's with Loomis. He has this chain net set up to catch Michael, which, okay. All right.
When did he set this up? Yeah. Where did this happen?
I don't know. It's fine. It is what it is.
It's fine.
He tranks him a bunch of times. Doesn't really bring him down, so he grabs a 2x4 and starts beating him, where he actually broke the actor's nose, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that. I heard that. Yep, remember that.
So Loomis beats him into submission because nothing could beat Michael into submission like a 2x4, guys.
Right. Bullets.
Of everything.
Nothing but an old, pretty much like half crippled burn victim Slamming over the head of an alcoholic, slamming over the head of the 2x4. That's what's going to finish out Michael Myers.
That is 100% what happened here. And then Loomis has a heart attack on top of Michael as they lay there unconscious together.
Right.
As the police lights all start flashing around them. It's such a weird choice.
Yeah.
That leads to the most batshit crazy. I wish it had ended there.
I do too. Oh my God, I wish it had ended there.
Because my God, the next 3 minutes of this movie almost derail everything. Because for some reason they go, you know what? Fuck it. We're just going to arrest Michael. What?
What? We have to start setting up Halloween 6 now. Wait, what?
So then the man in black shows up and apparently rains all fucking hell on this police precinct. Kills everyone inside except Jamie, who walks back in because she hears the explosion. She walks through the wreckage that is now the police precinct. And Michael is just gone. And Jamie just goes, no. What?
No. What the hell is going on?
What the fuck is this ending?
It is ridiculously stupid.
They have Michael in an actual jail cell thinking that's going to contain him.
And he still has his mask on, by the way. Because I know that when a masked criminal gets arrested by the police, they just let him keep the mask on because,
Right, of course. Why wouldn't you? Dude, everything about the last 3 minutes of this movie is...
There's only one thing that is good about it. One thing is good about it. They actually had Meeker die in the original sequence. They cut out Meeker being killed. So Meeker could technically come back and be fine. Even though it's not, because this whole line is dead at this point. But
that weird shot of the man in black as he's like there, it's like the aftermath of the explosion, but it's like hellfire behind him. It looks so weird as he's shooting. Like, what is that as a choice?
That's a bad choice. I don't get it. I
don't get it. This is not a good movie, guys, is what I'm getting at.
This is not a good movie. This is beyond awful.
You came into this so like,
I know.
I liked it more than before.
The thing is,
then I destroyed it.
No, but even after all of this, I still liked it more this viewing than I had before, which shows you how much I hated it before.
Sure. Look,
I think what it came down to is the final at the end of the day. I can still say I liked a lot of these characters, but I didn't like anybody in Halloween 2. And Halloween 2 is my groundwork. I'm kind of like, would I want to watch Halloween 5 again or watch Halloween 2 again? And I don't know the answer to that question at this point. I really don't.
That's fair.
So
it's fair.
That's where we are. I mean, well, while we said it, let's get into it. We have to rank this fucking thing. Again, 1 to 11. We always go to 11 on PLD projects, and I will say 11. Here, 11 was reserved for Halloween, the original, for both of us. I ranked Halloween 2 a 5. You ranked it 6. I ranked Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, an 8. You gave it a 9.5. I gave Halloween 4 a 10, or you gave it an 8. Where are you going to rank Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers?
God. I feel like I enjoyed it more than Halloween 2, but I don't really know if that's true or not. So now my rating for 2 seems too high, or my rating for this is going to seem too high, and I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I just ragged on this movie super fucking hard, but I feel like I need to give it like a 6. But that doesn't seem right.
Halloween 2? Ooh.
Yeah. That just doesn't seem right.
It doesn't seem right. I get it. I have the same feeling right now. How could I possibly? Do you want to go back and change your Halloween 2 ranking? I'll let that happen.
I mean, I know you will. I'm just like...
let me go ahead of you. I'm going to change my Halloween 5. Halloween 2, I'm going to rank my Halloween 2. I'm going to change my ranking from 5 down to 4.
Okay.
That helps you at all.
I'm going to move Halloween 2 down to 5.5. I'm going to give Halloween 5 a 5.5.
A 5.5. I'm going to give Halloween 5 a 4 as well. I feel like we're chincing out. I feel like almost we're kind of cheating and making it so we don't have to decide which one's worse.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I don't want to decide which one I like less.
They're both not.
At least I'm honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think Halloween 2 is worse in terms of it's more boring and it's got shitty characters. Halloween 5 has got good characters, but it's more aggressively egregious with what it fucks up. I think that's the difference. That's why it's hard to rank them in a way. At least Halloween 5 takes some weird swings, I guess is what I would say. They just don't connect very well or at all. But all right, that's what we're going to leave it in then is that point. What a wild turn of events. And that leads to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, which is what, like 6-7 years later? That takes them long to that make it because they like, well, we can't rush it again. But they still end up doing the same mistakes. They try to connect it. I feel bad for Halloween 6 that had to try to follow up this Halloween 5. Like, where do you follow it up with the whole, you got the Man in Black and the Cult of Thorn. You got to do something with it. You can't just totally ignore it. I almost wish, taking that back now, I wish Halloween 6 had done what Halloween 5 did and just said, you know what?
Honestly, yeah.
Fuck what they talked about, Halloween 6, this Cult of Thorn thing. Let it just be a random tattoo. Let the Men in Black never appear again. Just start over at that point. It needs a cleansing.
But I actually like Curse of Michael Myers. Hot take. So, you know,
that is interesting. That. We're gonna be definitely on opposite sides of the fence this time. Although, again, I saw the producer's cut last time, and I did like that better than I had liked it previously. But there's still a lot of egregiousness in Halloween 6, which I can't look past as well. But next week we're also going to have a guest on. We're going to have a guest on. We'll talk about it. I'll announce it next week.
We're no longer going to be two mediocre white dudes?
We are going to be two mediocre white dudes plus a guest. Two mediocre white dudes or 2+ at this point. Okay. But our guest is definitely not mediocre, definitely not a dude. So we'll go from there.
Interesting. Huh. I wonder who that could be.
I wonder who that could be as well. Stay tuned to find out. And if you really get interested, you can join us at patreon.com/PLD projects, right? That's where we learn about more of these things. And we learn more about Halloween because PJ and I are doing a show about the unproduced sequels to Halloween.
Assuming my power doesn't go out.
If PJ's power doesn't go out. If not, I guess there'll be one mediocre dude talking about it. Again, we're going to do that next week as well. We're probably going to switch dates. We're probably going to do that on Monday this time. But we'll get there. I'll let you know. Danielle Ramirez, Brandon Buckingham, Brandy Parker, Jeff Alterman, John Lustrina, Kelly W. I really appreciate you guys for all you do. I love all my patrons. Please join us there. That's a lot of fun. Find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me on PLD Projects YouTube channel, doing Class Action Weekly with Richard Eric Jarvie and Maddie Gunner. You can also find me doing Crown Jewels, my Queen podcast, which comes out weekly as well. Last episode, you just heard an episode come out yesterday. And you can find me on Action Industries. And at least for now, until it's over, you can find me writing questions for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. #Team Question Writers. PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram, PJ_Campbell with PLD over at the Movie Trivia Schmodown. Hey, we write the questions. Be nice to the question writers. We're only human. Still feels weird. Not going to lie.
We can't say that anymore. And it's weird.
I know. It feels weird. And you guys can find me over at Rotten Tomatoes soon, writing Rotten Tomato versus Matt Smith and David Tennant for one Mark Ellis. I hope you guys enjoy that. I believe he actually taped it today, so cool. I hope that really went well. But
we'll find out.
Yeah, man. And you guys keep an eye out because I'm going to be starting an MCU rewatch series soon. We're going to be doing an accompanying podcast. It will be myself and Chance Ellison. And I will also similarly be starting our own Patreon for that, as well as the movies you must see before you die. I still need to find a title for it, but I am going to be doing that very soon. And I think that there's going to be a mediocre white dude who will guest on that a lot, who you guys might know. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, what can I say? I like talking about movies with you. So
yeah, likewise, of course, my friend. Of course, until next time, guys, stay mediocre. Never underestimate the power of mediocrity.
Correct. Mediocre is the way to be. Love you.
Take care.